Hi. This is a bit of an impromptu video, but it is something that I think is very important and needs to be talked about, and that is the disappearance of the tween in the digital age. Now, it's quite difficult to define what a tween or a pre-teen is, or a tweenager even, but generally it refers to a child aged about 8 to 12, but even more so it's beginning to encompass children aged 8 to 14. The reason why the definition can be expanded from 8 to 12 to 8 to 15 or even older in some cases is because it is more so about how the brain is rapidly developing and the changes that it is going through. According to Childhood 101, quote, "They are now capable of more abstract and complex thinking and of using deductive reasoning to successfully anticipate consequences," end quote. The idea of a tween finding themselves and discovering their identity revolves primarily around them trying to find a label for themselves, which extends beyond merely being considered a daughter or a son of said parents. The paradox of the tween years is that this is the time when the tween needs their parents and the stable environment which they are theoretically meant to provide more than ever. It is also the time in which the tween is pushing away at that traditional stability and safety net. If peers reject the tween, then they have their parents to fall back on. They have the safety of their home environment where they are accepted irrespective. It is usually the knowledge, often the subconscious knowledge, of having this safety net of the familial unit to fall back on, which makes it easier for a tween to leave the nest. It makes it a little bit more bearable and gives them the confidence to more willingly seek out an identity for themselves, to take risks. At least this is the theoretical notion of the tween years. This was information which I found on most websites around childhood development and how parents can deal with the terrible tweens. A thing that I noticeably found about all of these websites and blogs was that they failed to comprehend how impacted the tween is by the digital age. Tweens are within, or probably the youngest age group within, the collective Gen Z. Individuals born from 1997 until 2012. Often Gen Z and millennials are conflated in the modern narrative. However, there are noticeable distinctions between them, especially when we consider the tween and its disappearance. What I'd like to argue in this video is that validation for the tween is increasingly being sought not through peers and their peer groups in the physical, realistic world, but more so in the digital spheres, particularly that of YouTube and TikTok. Now, as I'm sure you can see, I am not a tween. I am a Gen Zer, but I am definitely not a tween. For this reason, I have not ever downloaded TikTok, and in order to make this video, I did just that. I have been on TikTok for a total of about 13 hours, and I can say that I am quite horrified. I think it's important to evaluate and understand what the tween uses to navigate and understand the modern world. The majority of tweens in the United States and in the United Kingdom have smartphones, and I would say that based on my research, this can be seen in most Western European countries, or countries that are very much influenced by the Western European and American narrative and technologies. 53% of children aged 11 have a smartphone in the United States. In comparison, 90% of children aged 11 have a smartphone in the United Kingdom. In this study, 39% of tweens said that they could not live without their smartphone. What I also found most interesting is that 57% of these tweens go to bed with their smartphone, meaning that their phone is quite literally a personal attribute of theirs. It is virtually impossible for the modern parent to have real personal control over something which their child has such possessive control and power over. A smartphone is a highly personal device, and for a tween who is no longer dependent on their parent and is trying to leave the nest, having that control and seeking that independence is very easily discovered and utilized through a smartphone. A parent trying to navigate this is really, I don't even know, I could not imagine. Of course, the vast majority of tweens are using their smartphones in order to access social media platforms, most notably YouTube. YouTube was the most downloaded digital video app in the United States, and with YouTube predicted to make over 5.56 billion US dollars by the end of this year through AdSense alone, which is primarily advertised on children's shows and on child-friendly content, it is clear that they have attracted many tweens and younger children. This is supported by evidence which shows that over 80% of children aged 11 and under are permitted to access and watch YouTube content at least once a day. On YouTube, the algorithm directs children toward content which is considered most popular, that is, toward trends and challenges. I find this most interesting because the idea of most popular has connotations which relate it to peer validation, to the idea that what is most popular, what is trending, what is considered the hype of the day, my age really showed there, is what is going to validate those people who follow such trends, who follow such popular content. This is important because Google itself ran its own study and found that 70% of young child subscribers to YouTube channels relate more to online social media influencers than they do to your traditional celebrities and child stars. YouTube and TikTok are perfectly suited for the tween. They are because firstly, they both prioritize peer validation when it comes to attracting and marketing to their tween audience. And secondly, specifically with regards to YouTube acting as a search engine, the biggest search engine just after Google itself. It's a search engine. If you need help with how you look, if you need to see what a glow up looks like, if you want to find out how to do your contouring, YouTube is the place to go. YouTubers and YouTube influencers are central to this, particularly for Gen Z, and in an age of increasing identity politics and identity-driven content and understanding. Now, I have tried to understand why tweens are particularly attracted to two forms of content on YouTube, namely challenges and secondly, family vlogging channels. The appeal of challenges is that it is the best way to go viral and therefore garner validation from the tween's most important audience, the internet. The appeal of family vlogs comes from seeing how a seemingly put together tween or teen navigates not only the world but also their relationships with their parents and peers. They must have their lives and identities figured out because they have a successful YouTube channel with millions of views a month. Vlogs also only show the good and the interesting aspects of said influencer's life. Although a tween's mind is developing and growing, they are still incredibly impressionable. But now I'd like to move on to talk about TikTok before going into my final deduction and analysis on why the tween has disappeared. Increasingly, tweens are engaging with one another and sharing creativity and ideas on the most downloaded mobile app in the world, TikTok. 60% of TikTok users are classified as being of Gen Z. In terms of what can be considered tweens' favoured social media platform, Snapchat comes in first, with TikTok at a close second. What is distinctive about TikTok is that, unlike all of its other rivals, particularly Facebook, which tweens are least likely to engage with, TikTok is made and was made especially with the Gen Z, namely the tween specifically, in mind. Think, for instance, of the basic format of a TikTok. A TikTok is very short. Millennials have an average attention span of 12 seconds. Gen Z has an average attention span of 8 seconds, which is quite literally less than a goldfish. What this shows is that our generation desires and values immediate gratification, instant stimulation, and quick-fire content. We also enjoy video and audio content more so than, for instance, reading a book or a novel. If we're going to consider this in relation to TikTok, which is all about the visuals, it is important that firstly an influencer immediately attracts the attention of their viewer, and the easiest way to do that is through the physical. My very temporary 13-hour exploration on TikTok showed that looks are everything, appearance is everything, and in this, increasingly more so, sexualized appearance is everything for both men and women. The success of TikTok being able to specifically target tweens and teenagers can be seen in the fact that even though, for instance, in the United States, teenagers make up a mere 25.9% of the overall population, 25% of TikTok users in the United States are teenagers.
So today I'm going to be doing the abusive boyfriend prank.
I'll make you food right now. Okay, no, come here.
I don't think that you have to do this right now. There's literally all here left. You don't have
care.
Although studies increasingly show that Gen Z values authenticity above all else when it comes to influencers and products, what is authenticity in this day and digital age? I think this is central to understanding the disappearance of the tween, whose conception of authenticity is increasingly being dominated by the influencer's inauthentic authentic persona, whose value is quite paradoxical. An influencer, on the one hand, is valued because of their supposed authenticity. They necessarily have to instigate or become a part of trends and challenges. Yet, in order to retain and attract new subscribers, to attract likes and views, they have to increasingly follow what is the most popular. This is in pursuit of relevancy and popularity. With the latter, authenticity is immediately lost. With the former, popularity likely cannot actually be gained. What is fortunate for the average influencer is that they are able to get out of this rut. They are largely able to get out of this rut by distinguishing their online persona from who they are in their personal and private life. These teams are largely responsible for cultivating and curating their image. However, this is becoming increasingly more difficult as competition becomes more fierce, and the algorithm is constantly looking for the next viral content and/or creator. And because these influencers are becoming younger and younger, they have not even had the time to discover or sufficiently explore who they really are before they take on an entirely marketed public identity and persona. And what the influencer has that their audience doesn't is money. And money is central to clout, and it is central to being popular. If you have wealth and you can show off that wealth on social media, especially to a younger, very impressionable audience who want to emulate you, that is often enough. Also, great marketing and an echo chamber of support around the brand's seeming authenticity is often able to disguise this paradox. Now, I think the disappearance of the tween can be seen in the significance and dominance of two main groups within the child-friendly or the tween influencer sphere. I will call these groups firstly the Tweens-No-More group and category, and secondly the Bizz-Kidzz category.
anybody, no matter what age you are, guys. I am super young. Anybody can get into real estate, guys. Doesn't matter how much money you have, doesn't matter what you do, you can literally get into real estate, guys. So make sure you guys go check out Chandler's channel and go check out the course, guys, because he's gonna be giving how much of a discount on the course?
$200 off. So it's usually a $300 course. If you use the code JACK, you can get it for just 99 bucks.
Boys, $99, and that $99, if you do it right, could possibly make you hundreds of thousands of dollars in the future. You just gotta be smart.
When I say Tweens-No-More, I'm referring to tweens and teenagers who are very popular, particularly on YouTube and now more so on TikTok as well. What is distinct about them is that their content is focused more so on post-teen concerns. Having a stable boyfriend or a stable girlfriend, buying a house. There is increasingly sexually suggestive content in which the sexual connotations are open secrets among the influencer and their audience.
What's up, guys? So today I am going to ask my mom to rate my ex-girlfriends and kind of just react and get her opinions on them. The catch is she actually doesn't know that I'm going to be doing this video, so
Google search you, right?
yeah.
For your girlfriends? I mean your exes?
Yeah.
And your current?
Yeah.
So you're saying you have a current girlfriend?
Hey mom!
Going back!
We need you to be in a video. I was thinking today you could react to my ex-girlfriend and like rate them.
Which one?
There's like
1, 2, 3, 4. Is this a joke, right?
no.
No.
What's
The sexual aspect of the content is never explicitly stated, which keeps the content supposedly child-friendly. What generally also encompasses these Tweens-No-More is a concern with outer appearances, particularly looks. By this, I refer mostly to cosmetic work and cosmetic or plastic surgery. Within this category, I don't just include tween influencers, but also young adult influencers whose content is aimed at tweens or who have emerged from having, in their early days, a tween audience that still follow them. These influencers are mainly 18 to about roughly at the oldest 22 years of age, and their content is definitely aimed at a much younger demographic who hold them in high esteem and in awe. Tweens-No-More also include family vloggers whose content is largely focused around pranks. This content revolves around, namely, or most likely, a heterosexual couple. However, I've seen in the last year or two that increasingly tweens and teenagers are beginning to take on this dynamic between a heterosexual male and female who are in a committed relationship, or at least according to their media persona. They play pranks on each other, they do challenges, but it mainly revolves around issues relating to a relationship, mostly rather serious relationship issues such as infidelity. Oh, being locked in the same room as my boyfriend's best girlfriend for an hour and making noises to see what he thinks when he gets back from charging his Tesla. A lot of this content also shows these young adults, and in some cases even tweens, having responsibilities and a type of independence which their audience could only dream of. Even if this content isn't explicit in any overt or even covert way, these tweens still have responsibilities on their shoulders, which most young adults and millennials, at least young millennials, don't even have. The tween in this is completely eradicated in place of a young influencer. Described on their website as one of the most intriguing families of the new digital generation, the Norris Nuts is the collective name used to refer to one of YouTube's most prolific family vlogging channels and its subsidiaries. The family consists of former Australian Olympic medalist Justin Norris, or Papa, Brooke Norris, or Mama, and their 6 children, the Norris Nuts: Saber, Biggie, Socky,
Naz, Disco, and Charm. Yes, these are their names according to, well, them. As their business and brand has grown since its beginnings in 2017, the Norris Nuts have increasingly become what can fairly be called Bizz-Kidzz.
Right, so Bizz-Kidzz are quite different, but at the same time they represent the complete demise of your average run-of-the-mill tween. These are tweens whose content is noticeably and very overtly family-friendly. Their content largely presents them as living a typical tween life. They still live with their parents. They still go to school, although this has often become homeschooling eventually. They like to play Minecraft and... what's the other one? Roblox. However, what makes these tweens Bizz-Kidzz, unabbreviated business kids, is that they are inadvertently entrepreneurial. They are entrepreneurial and business kids because of their parents, the individuals who are meant to be seemingly protecting them from all of this fame, fortune, and chasing after clout. Their parents are their managers, or their parents have curated a brand and image around their tweens and teenagers through a family vlogging platform. I don't necessarily see the Tweens-No-More and the Bizz-Kidzz as completely separate and distinct from each other. There can definitely be overlaps, and I see this in, for instance, the 15-year-old creator and YouTuber Danielle Cohen. She is a biz kid because her mother is her manager, but she is also a tween-no-more in that her content is very sexualized and is very focused on what I would call post-teen concerns and considerations. What I have noticed is that most parents actually prefer their children to watch these Bizz-Kidzz because the image which they give off is far more wholesome, it is far less explicit, it is not sexualized in any way mostly, and it is content that is family friendly and appropriate. Tweens and young children can watch this content with their parents. Because of the family vlogging style, and often because of the featuring of the parents in this type of content, the parents themselves can relate to the parents of the Bizz-Kidzz. A good example of this, I think, is the Norris Nuts.
Firstly, the Norris Nuts have acknowledged that they are diligent about pre-recording and being at least a month ahead on content. Aside from their main channel, the Norris Nuts, the family also has 5 additional channels. Norris Nuts Do Stuff, Norris Nuts Gaming, Norris Nuts Clips, Norris Nuts Cooking, and Norris Nuts Squad. On top of this, they are actively on every other major social media platform. Secondly, their content features all the tropes, buzzwords, and trends which on YouTube are integral to attracting young and impressionable viewers. Aside from their vlogs, which focus on that common trope of all child-friendly content, over-dramatized challenges surrounding someone winning hundreds of thousands of dollars, their music is another avenue that has solidified a loyal and easily identifiable fan base. Thirdly, it is obvious that, like most YouTube content, their vlogs are scripted. A simple vlog on their channels has a concise chronological narrative. The children introduce the vlog with regular enthusiasm and over-the-top gestures. The core drama, sensation, or plot is soon addressed. Aesthetic and well-stylized B-roll footage is created to add to a sense of awe. This is highly effective at making the mundane activities of everyday life appear exceptional and cinematic, especially when it is done by the Norris Nuts. Stage management can be seen in how the siblings hardly ever talk over one another. Their dialogue is clear enough and comprehensible enough for them to then add accurate phrasing, keywords, and buzzwords under all their content. According to Brooke, the Norris Nuts also edit all their own YouTube videos. That is, the children edit all their own YouTube videos. Considering their reach, their almost daily upload schedule, creating content at least 1 month in advance, and doing so for all 6 of their channels, the Norris Nuts are working excruciatingly hard and long hours. When your life is content, Other more important childhood developmental concerns become secondary. The Norris nuts don't go to school and are allegedly homeschooled. They have effectively avoided speaking about their education and grades, but it is evident that their viewers and critics alike notice that their schooling is lacking. Their schedule is consumed by vlogging and editing, which arguably takes priority over their morning schooling. In the real world, where children's livelihoods are strictly governed by regulations protecting them from labor and exploitation, child actors, stars, and performers work in line with rigid contracts. In the United States, Coogan laws, named after the child star Jackie Coogan, whose earnings as a child actor were stolen by his parents, ensures that A. 15% of what they earn is safeguarded until they come of age, and B. that as of 2019, all monies earned and generated under contract is exclusively the property of the child. The laws have also codified issues relating to how many hours the child is allowed to work, ensures that the child is not sacrificing their schooling, and ensures that the child has regular time off. These regulations do not extend to YouTube creators and their children at the crux of their content and notoriety. The only thing standing between a child and abuse is a parent who is evidently not above the allure of potential fame and fortune.
Although the image of the tween is very central to this type of content creator, to the Bizz-Kidzz, unfortunately, because of the monetization and the marketization, the branding of the tween, this isn't really a tween at all. This is just a business. This is turning a child and a childhood experience into something that can be marketed for money. What is primarily central to these Bizz-Kidzz is popularity. On the one hand, they promote a narrative that they are about acceptance, that they are not about popularity. But on the other hand, their notoriety and their subscriber count is largely based on trends, on starting trends, on following trends, on being very active on multiple social media platforms. In both cases, I see the disappearance of something very important, something that is quite frightening to think is actually disappearing. On doing my research, I could not see any representation of an actual tween or teenager. That important developmental phase, that phase of developing their reasoning and judgment, is clouded by the influence, the near indoctrination of social media marketing, of this content which is aimed at them and aimed specifically to make more money from them. Not only is this frightening on the level that it, for instance, takes advantage of the lowering attention span of the tween and of Gen Z in general, it's also disturbing because in order to exploit this to its full potential, marketers and influencers are increasingly resorting to explicit content. The idea that sex sells is not lost on a tween. This mature tone is increasingly moving into domains which should have no place for children, for tweens, teens, and even, in my opinion, young adults. And that is plastic and cosmetic surgery. Just a simple search on my day-old Twitter account shows me that there are numerous plastic surgeons who have established TikTok platforms for themselves. They are incredibly popular. They get at least 500k views on a video focused around namely doing a TikTok dance or two with a young influencer who they are giving some freebie to. Although TikTok in 2019 put parental controls on children under the age of 13 accessing TikTok, this is more so to do with whether the parent is willing or able to have such control over their child's smartphone, which, as we discussed before, is very difficult when 57% of children go to bed with their phone clasped to their chest. Business ventures and clients are increasingly being found via TikTok a platform that was made with Gen Z, that is 6 to 24-year-olds, exclusively in mind. The American Society of Plastic Surgeons only puts out guidelines to plastic surgeons on how they should respond to young, namely teenage clients coming to them and asking for particular procedures. And these are just that. They are mere guidelines. Similar to the lack of regulations and legislation protecting children on YouTube, protecting Bizz-Kidzz on YouTube when being used and turned into entrepreneurs by their parents. There are no laws in place, no concrete laws and legislation protecting children from plastic surgeons and from getting procedures which they may want after seeing their favorite influencer getting lip fillers, getting a rhinoplasty, getting liposuction, or even a Brazilian butt lift. On both platforms, safety of children is solely the responsibility of the parent. And in my opinion, especially in this age in which parents who are millennials most of the time are themselves exposed to the allure and influence of fame, fortune, clout, and quick new money, they are not necessarily the best arbiters of what is best for their child. Think Danielle Cohen's mum. Online validation and looking for validation through the internet is not just something exclusively that of tweens and teenagers. Adults are just as susceptible, are just as vulnerable and gullible to it. We all are. Our brain's frontal lobe, which is responsible for reason and judgment, is only fully developed by our early 20s. We want to be noticed, especially in an increasingly image-focused world and digital age. I don't really know what to think. But it is sad when the content which tweens are watching, when tweens are going onto the internet in order to try and discover themselves, they are merely being fed content which is completely superficial but marketed to them as being authentic, as being real and genuine. They therefore place the unrealistic standards of these seemingly authentic influencers onto themselves. They see themselves as flawed, and in this they decide to completely, and are in a way even coerced to completely dismiss and disregard being a child, being a tween, in pursuit of over-sexualization, of being concerned with mere popularity, online popularity and validation, with views and likes, all of which are completely focused on how they look. Something is very amiss here, and I think this is something that needs to be taken far more seriously going forward, especially on platforms such as YouTube. Tweens are deemed only significant insofar as they conform to aesthetic trends. I didn't grow up with the internet, and I'm so happy that I didn't, because even now, at my age, I feel incredibly inferior and insecure when on the internet. I cannot imagine how difficult and perplexing and invalidating the internet can be for young people. There is a world of tweens that is normal, just individual, happy-go-lucky and sad teenagers and tweens out there, and the internet does not in any way show that. And in this, in its increasing dominance over our society, it is killing. Yeah, it's killing the tween and the teenage years. Thanks, and I'll see you in the next one.